Thank you, Mr. President. We could pass this bill, pass the last one. The results are still the same. We may as well just pass a bill to send the rich to Sea Island a few more times a year on taxpayer money. Our Republican colleagues have kept saying that eliminating the state income tax, lowering it to this massive degree, won't raise sales taxes. That sounds really nice, but it is complete magical thinking. And for the families that are struggling to pay rent, childcare, utility bills, buy their groceries, it's worse than a slap in the face. It is a flat-out scam. You cannot blow a hole in our state budget bigger than a sinkhole swallowing Stone Mountain and pretend that the money doesn't have to come from somewhere. Income tax funds half our state budget. That pays for schools, public safety, healthcare, infrastructure, the basics that even make us a state. And if you wipe that out, if you take it down to this degree, you do what the study committee said we should, eliminate it altogether. And I think everyone's still saying, my Republican colleagues are still saying, we'll eliminate it in 6 years. You either slash services dramatically, and by dramatically I mean like closing our public universities, or you got to replace the revenue. There is no third option. And for those of you who are being, and I think it's probably play acting, those of you who are being willfully obtuse, saying, oh, I read the bill and there's nothing in there about sales taxes. You don't have to take it from me. As our state economist Bob Bushman put it, eliminating Georgia's income tax is, and I quote, an unrealistic talking point spouted by unserious people. He warned that because the income tax makes up half of state revenue, you have to replace almost all of it to avoid fiscal disaster. And how do you replace it? Well, as our state economist Bushman spelled out, the only realistic alternative, and those are his words, the only realistic alternative to income tax is a sales tax, which is why that's what they have in Florida, and that's what they have in Tennessee and these vaunted states that we apparently want to emulate. And when it's sales tax instead of income tax, that means the rich pay less, the middle class pay more. And that's not rhetoric, it's basic math. And let me ask you, if everything we just heard during the last bill is correct, and that means Bob Bushman is totally wrong. And let me ask you, if he is so clueless about economics, why was he hired as our state economist? Some of you may need to go have a talk with him, because apparently you know a lot more about how the economy works and revenue works than he does. A sales tax hits hardest those who spend most of what they earn just to live. Middle-class families, working families, seniors on fixed incomes. So let me just break it down a little more in real numbers for those Republicans who say this is a lie, don't understand the economy, or here's another possibility, and I'd wager that this one is actually closer to the truth for many of you, are just kind of soldiering on with the Republican talking points, even though you know that these bills are pie-in-the-sky nonsense. Here are the numbers. If you make $60,000 a year, nearly every dollar, perhaps every dollar, will go to rent, mortgage, groceries, gas, school clothes, prescriptions. You pay sales tax again and again and again. If you make $6 million, on the other hand, most of your income will end up invested. Stocks, real estate, venture capital, not spent at the grocery store, and not taxed. I believe y'all would be tripping over yourselves to show us the numbers. Instead, we're just hiding them. Ain't that telling? I got another history lesson for you. And this one I've witnessed personally. It's Democrats who have been fighting for middle-class families in this chamber for the past 15, 20 years. We've pushed to raise the minimum wage. We've fought to expand Medicaid so hundreds of thousands of Georgians could access health care. Instead, the Republican plan has spent $110 million, and 70% of all that has gone to jobs for paper pushers who make sure it's near impossible for folks to qualify. That's pathways for you. We have worked with a few good men in here too who are Republicans to rein in skyrocketing power bills. But let's be honest, it is on Republicans that folks' utility bills have gone up 6 times in the last 2 years. Republicans oversaw making Georgians pay the 5th highest electric bills in the nation and the highest gas bills in the nation. That's why 2 of them just lost in a landslide. We've proposed a state work credit for years and a state-level earned income tax credit to put money directly back into the pockets of working families. 31 states have that. Never took action on that bill. I've been the author of it for years. We've proposed the state replace ACA subsidies that the Republicans in Washington killed, ripping health care away from hundreds of thousands of Georgians. We filed a refundable child care tax credit. We fought for funding for CAPS for years. So please, spare us the fake populism about how these bills help people with expensive child care and power bills. The only reason child care and power bills are what they are in Georgia is because the Republicans chose to make them that way. Where have you been the last 15 years? We've supported literacy initiatives, affordable housing investments, needs-based higher education, and even portable benefits, so the gig workers in our economy can access health and retirement security. Now that's an affordability agenda, and that ain't even the extent of it. That's an affordability agenda, not a tax scheme that benefits the wealthier among us and sends the bill to everyone else. I do believe that Georgia families are too smart for that. So this proposal isn't about affordability. It's about ideology and political ambition. It's about delivering a headline without telling you what happens next. When politicians promise you something for nothing, it's usually you who will end up paying. This state deserves serious leadership, serious budgeting, and serious solutions, not a fairy tale. Republicans here with these proposals are the wolf in sheep's clothing. Come here, pretty little thing. Trust me, I'm one of you, before devouring the very people they claim to help. So let's not fall for this, Georgia. Vote down this fairy tale. Vote down this tax scam. And let's move on with some bills that really help the working class. Thank you, Mr. President. I'm happy to answer any questions.
You do have one question, Senator.
All right, then. I yield the well. Thank you.
I said you do have one question, Senator.
I thought you said you do not have any questions.
Recognize the Senator from the 19th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator, do you yield?
Of course.
I appreciate your passionate comments. You mentioned about a divide between the middle class and the wealthy. I'm just wondering, where do you draw that line? What's the difference between when someone's in middle class and when they're in the wealthy? I think you referred to them as the Epstein class.
Well, the Epstein class is obviously the very wealthy. So, I mean, the important point there is really that the less you make, the more a non-income tax source of revenue falls on you. So basically, it's like pushing the tax burden downward. So if I make 140K, and I still have to spend a much higher percentage of my income on basic necessities in day-to-day life than someone who makes 300,000 or 500,000. So in that sense, a non-progressive income tax-based solution means that I still pay more. So really, that's the crux of the debate.
Will the senator further yield?
Sure.
So is there a dollar value that you think is the break line between middle class and the wealthy?
I really think the very important point is the less you make, the more you will spend in taxes.
Will the senator further yield?
Sure.
Because am I correct to believe you would support a tax cut for the middle class? Would that be fair?
Well, I would support, for example, I've been the author all these years of the work credit bill. I would support a higher standard deduction. Yeah, I do believe, yes, I believe, and that is where some of these credits that we are discussing should be examined. But you can't do the pie in the sky things in these bills and expect to make up for them that way. They're just they're a much smaller percentage of our revenue or our revenue expenditure than the taxes are.
Would the senator further yield?
Sure.
You just said you would support a higher standard deduction. The bill that just came before you raised the standard deduction from $24,000 to $100,000 for a working family, quadrupling it, yet you voted against it.
Because as Bob Bushman explained, you cannot eliminate all that revenue without something to make it up, or otherwise you court fiscal disaster. And the only alternative is the sales tax, unless we're going to institute a state property tax. And the income tax, people who make more pay more. The sales tax, people who make less pay more.
Will the senator yield for one final question? If you can
Absolutely. To my friend, the Appropriations Chairman.
If you can give me a dollar amount on this one, I will not ask you again. What is the break line between the middle class and the wealthy class that you mentioned earlier? What dollar value?
It depends on where you live. There's a lot of things. That's kind of not, who cares? The point is the less you make, the more you pay.
Then, will Senator yield again?
Yes.
You can pick where. If you pick DeKalb County or pick Atlanta or pick South Georgia, I'm just wondering what you think the middle class break dollar is for whichever place you pick.
There was an op-ed, I think, in the Wall Street Journal recently that suggested that 140K these years was basically the poverty line.
So you would say that...
I'm not saying that. I'm just letting you know.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Appropriations Chair. I appreciated your passionate closing speech on the last bill. I yield the well.